Maybe we'll get going here, okay? Thanks for everyone showing up. Just before we start, I'm going to ask Marjorie to do an opening prayer for us, so we could have a good meeting. Thank you, Marjorie. Maybe just quickly do some introductions. I'm going to say that we have Kevin and his crew here, which they'll introduce themselves. But the way we're looking at this is we're making history, and I wanted us to document our journey on this. Okay, so when people look back, our future generations, they'll be able to say, "Hey, this is how we started our journey to our governance here." So and the other ones that we have, of course, you guys know, is our consultants that helps us to go along this journey. And then there's Michelle and I that's sort of managing the project because we do get funding from the federal government and the provincial government to do this type of meeting. So maybe from there, I'd like to go around to everyone under introducing themselves. Just say your name and then we'll go around so you know who's who. So Michelle, did you want to go first?
Everybody knows I'm Michelle. I am the president of the Society of Needy Housing, and so I just want to move Kelly Lake forward, do what I can, my time on earth, to get us together and back to where we started, back to, like you said, with Gary's dream, right? Be one again. So.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Marcus Hadley. As Norman said, I'm one of the team of consultants who are working with Needy and with the community to develop a governance model for Kelly Lake. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it, and you'll hear a lot more from me as we go through the morning. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Dacia Duhavi. Too complicated new names for you, I'm sure, but for those who've met me before, good to see you all again. And there's a lot of new faces in the room today, which is really wonderful and exciting. Also great to see there everyone from the community, from elders to little ones. So it's really nice to see all of you come together today. I have also been part of the team working with Nikki on doing some work around housing and community development, and now, of course, the most important piece of all, which is governance. So looking forward to speaking with you and hearing from you a lot throughout the day.
All right. Desmer? All right, just to add what Kevin is too, is that we're trying to be transparent, so anyone that isn't at the meeting be able to catch up on exactly what's happening. So it's not a secret meeting. The more people know about this, the better, because it's Kelly Lake that we should be talking about. So from there, I'm gonna. Did you want to have any words? Going to hand it over to Marcus and Dacia, and they're just going to go through what has transpired here just quickly give you an update, and then what our next steps are, okay?
All right, so we thought we would give you a sense of what it is that we're here to do today and how that fits into a bigger process. So you'll know us from coming and meeting with you a number of times over the last almost 2 years around things that the community needs, things around housing, things around infrastructure, more than that, and about how much the community wanted to come together, act together as one, and have representation in the form of a government so that you can have direct government-to-government conversations and ensure that the community gets what it needs. As you know, it's been really hard for Kelly Lake to get housing, infrastructure, anything to do with the healthcare things that you had asked for, the education things that you had asked for, without having a representative government to work with other levels of government. So we'd heard quite a lot from you about that over the last few years, and the meeting today and meetings that we have had leading up to today and what will happen going forward from today is all a result of that. So that's kind of a little bit of the background about what brought us here. So as part of the conversation around this process, about a month ago we met with the Elders Committee and a few other supportive members of the community that were available and wanted to support the Elders Committee in their work, and had a first conversation around how do we move forward. And some decisions were made and some support was given to a process that will lead you from where things are today to a point not very far in the future where Kelly Lake has its own representative government. There's a lot of work to do between now and then, so what we've done is tried to create a process for doing all of the work that needs to happen between now and then. So we developed that process or an idea of what that could look like with the Elders Committee, with their guidance and with their insight. And so what we're here to do today is to share the work that's been done so far, so that the community is always involved in knowing what's happening and giving their voice to what's happening and really leading what's happening. And then we'll kind of talk about what we have to get accomplished today, what needs to come out of today in order to continue moving forward.
As Daisy said, I'll just run you through again what we'll do today. So first off, we're going to talk about the process in general. There are those who are here or at the last meeting who know this. We discussed it quite extensively there and took a lot of input and got approval for this. But obviously there are new faces here, might not have been there, so aren't 100% clear on what that looks like. We'll lay that out for you. And then in order to gather as much feedback and as much advice and to have this represent the community as much as possible, we'll break out into smaller groups, and we did this at the last meeting and it worked quite well. It gives everybody an opportunity to contribute and for those who are more comfortable in smaller groups to speak to the process that is being outlined. And we're always open to advice and suggestions and a better understanding of what will work for Kelly Lake, of course. Then we will, take a break, and then we'll have these small breakout groups, and then we'll come back, and based on those conversations, we'll talk more about the next step in the process, which is what we're calling a working group. And we'll explain what that looks like and how it's going to operate. And then finally, one of the things we want to do to make sure we do today is have that working group set up and with a membership, with the terms of reference, and with the approval of the community here, and get going on this. We need to keep momentum going, so today we want to come out with the working group ready to go.
We kind of explained a lot. We're going to try and really slowly walk through each part of this. So just to kind of remind or to keep us all on the same page about what it is that we're trying to do, we're trying to move Kelly Lake towards having its own representative government. There's a number of steps, and we're going to show you the whole process in a bit of a mapping out of what that will look like. But in order to get from where the community is today to that point where there's a government for Kelly Lake, one of the first things we did is have a meeting of the Elders Committee. So over the course of the last few years, the community has said that it's really important that whatever happens is community-led and driven, but that the elders are the ones who provide guidance and direction to the way that happens. So in order to make sure that that's how this was working, we met with the Elders Committee and had a first conversation around how should we do this? How should we move from today to a future date, very near in the future, where Kelly Lake will have a government. So we're going to show you what the result of that discussion looked like. Part of what that conversation identified was that it would be a good idea to have, we're calling it a working group, and it has a name, and we'll share that name, but have a group of people that would help lead the discussion and help make decisions around the way forward. So that was one of the results of the meeting. The elders and the people that were at the meeting named that group, and we'll share the name with you. They gave some direction on what the membership of that group should look like, and we started the conversation around some terms of reference for that group. So that was the previous meeting.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Can we get you to use the mic, the noise in the background and everything when you're talking? We can't hear half the word you're saying.
Oh, okay.
We'll have to. There's no mic. There's no PA system, so we'll speak up. Thanks. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Some of your words are muffled.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Thanks for letting us know. We'll speak up.
Marcus has a louder voice than I do, so I'll try, and then we'll both try and explain.
So just so basically we're talking about the first step in the process, which was the meeting with the elders group and getting their input and advice on what the process should look like. The first step that we were directed to take was to put together a working group. And that's what we're here today really to launch, is to get this working group going. And it's the first step in a 3-stage process, which we'll talk about. But the key for us today is to get this working group launched. And we'll talk a bit about the process and a bit about the future and what that looks like. But really, for us today, the most important thing is that we get this working group together and we get a membership, a representative membership on that working group, and that we get a terms of reference, and that it gets underway as soon as possible to keep momentum going on this project. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. I know it's small and far away, different venue for us today. But this is the beginning of the outline of the process that the elders advised and approved on in the last meeting that we had. So it's staged. You can see the dates there. That we're being quite ambitious. And that's very purposeful, because we feel that we need to do this very quickly. We need to do it well, but it needs to keep momentum going and engaging the community as much as possible. So we had the elders meeting in May. We have this community meeting today. We launched the working group, and the working group is going to do its work over the next 2 months. And that working group is going to, and you'll see what the working group is responsible for and what it's going to report out on. But you'll see that there will be community presentations through August and September. Kelly Lake Days is going to be the main event, where we hope we'll have the biggest representation from the community and the sort of the most time to discuss, mull over, and get feedback on what the working group has proposed as a next step in the process. And the outcome really from that is a vote, and it's a vote for what we're calling a governance committee. So this is not an election for a government at this point. It's a vote for the membership in what we call the governance committee. And that governance committee will then, with a mandate that's approved by the community, will then move forward the process of putting in place a government. So that would mean things like drafting, constituting documents, developing an election process, and really understanding what the form of government is that will work for Kelly Lake. So a lot of community consultation through that process. So that's kind of the 3 stages that we're following. And so at some point in the future, maybe 6 months or 12 months or 18 months in the future, again, with a lot of community input and approval, there will be an election for a Kelly Lake government. So that's the whole of the process that we're looking at. And as I say, at this point, we're in June, and we're at the initial community meeting to talk about what the working group will look like. Okay. Any questions at this point? Yes.
So what we're working for is just one government, one person speaking for Kelly Lake. There's not going to be a whole bunch of different groups speaking, right? This is what this is about.
That's the goal. Yeah. Now, that said, what that government looks like is there's no preconceived ideas about that. That will be developed through community consultation and leadership as the in that what we call phase 2, the governance committee. But the idea exactly is that there is a single government representing Kelly Lake that's elected and representative of the community, and then takes that legitimacy and can go to government, can go to industry, and work with other groups such as the Métis in order to advance the interests of the whole community of Kelly Lake. Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, we know that for a lot of years, one of the problems that has existed that has made it very hard for Kelly Lake to move forward is that there are a lot of different voices that are representing the interests of the community. And we know that the community wants one voice for Kelly Lake so that it's very clear who everyone should come and deal with and speak to have answers to things that the community wants and needs. And in order to do that, you have to create a process to get there, to get to a representative voice that everyone feels comfortable representing Kelly Lake, that can have that government-to-government relationship, so it's supported by the community and the community has comfort and faith and trust in them to support what you want, and that it also has the legitimacy to have those conversations with other levels of government, with industry that's working in your territory and all of that. So what we're trying to do with the Elders Committee, with the community, and then with and through this working group is start to walk the steps forward to get there, which again takes time and takes a lot of work because you have to come up with the answers to so many of the questions around how to do that, how to get there, how to make sure that everyone feels that this is a trusted and representative group that can be the government for Kelly Lake. So when we talked about what those steps look like, and when we worked with the Elders Committee and some community members to think about that, somebody needs to do that work. It's a lot of work, right? The people that do that work should be connected to Kelly Lake. It should be a number of people that the community says, yes, please go do that work for us, and then come back and tell us what you've done and what you're doing so that we can continue to be part of the conversation. So the idea of this working group is, as Marcus was explaining, the first step in having a group of people that are from the community and that the community supports and trusts to do that work, the early part of the work. So today we're sharing a lot of information about this whole process, and then we're asking the community to hopefully give support to the process, but more so to help with that first step, which is identifying the people that are going to start to do that work on your behalf. So people that you want to sit down and make some of those very early decisions about how to go forward and how to start walking that process ahead towards the government. Mm-hmm.
We will make our own laws, right?
Yeah, of course.
You're going to have to move a little quicker, Kevin.
This is how Kevin gets his exercise today.
Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts at this point? Happy to take any input you have.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was going to ask if you're going to pay for it.
So maybe just a quick, we're actually going to be fixing the ball diamond here in the next week and actually putting up horseshoe pits, but that's on the agenda. The reason why we couldn't do it, to be honest, is we need one government talking on behalf of Kelly Lake, because if we had one government, we would have all the housing, the infrastructure by now. But everyone is trying to clamor like if it's like a comedy. There's 5 people trying to get through the door. We just need one person to do those, to represent them. And everyone should have one vote. When did we stop? When did we lose our right to vote? It's just silly. Like, if you don't like your government, you should vote them out. If you like the person, vote them in. That's the process that we're trying to do here. And it will be every 4 years or every 2 years, whatever the community decides.
Okay.
Another question?
That's not even working.
That's for the video.
Yeah, that's a little confusing.
Your turn to show.
The importance of this process will determine the future of Kelly Lake.
Yeah.
As we all know, there hasn't been a real leadership in Kelly Lake since the last election, 27, 28 years ago? There's never been an election since. The government, industry, they will not deal with Kelly Lake unless there is a leadership there that's going to be responsible for the dollars that are spent in the community. And Kelly Lake's missing out on tens of millions of dollars in infrastructure, housing, early childhood education, health. All these should be in place in Kelly Lake years ago. I know there's a lot of people that are not living in Kelly Lake right now that want to be in Kelly Lake. There's no housing there. There's no government that will negotiate with Kelly Lake unless there is a government in place. Somebody that's going to be responsible for tens of millions of dollars. There's no government anywhere that will spend that kind of money when there's no infrastructure in place, no leadership. Nobody is going to be held responsible for those dollars. When it comes to our children, daycares, Métis Nation of BC, we have, I think it's about $25–30 million to spend on early childhood education, daycare centers across communities across BC, which we are developing right now, which we're putting in place. We have millions of dollars in housing, as I am the Minister of Housing, and I am from Kelly Lake, and I want to help Kelly Lake. Without leadership, there's no possible way that any government or any industry is going to come in and help Kelly Lake and deal with the issues there. Put up infrastructure. Put up a community government. When you have a community government, they go in and the provincial government will give you infrastructure dollars for that community government. They will help to pay the salaries for that board to be able to go and negotiate on behalf of Kelly Lake on a daily basis, all the time, to make sure that infrastructure is in place for Kelly Lake. That is very imperative. Kelly Lake is dying off slowly, more and more. We're losing a lot of our elders. Some of our elders we should have never lost. If we had a health unit in Kelly Lake, our elders could have went to that health unit and been diagnosed right away and been sent to hospitals. A lot of our elders don't like to go out of the community. They stay home and they suffer. But if there was some infrastructure right in Kelly Lake, some of them elders would be with us today, because they would go to their own community health unit, because they're seeing their own people there. Without that, Kelly Lake is dying slowly and slowly and slowly. What Norman and them are trying to do is build that back up, bring our people back to Kelly Lake, give them something to look forward to, give them some housing, some place for their children to go, some place for our elders to be looked after with health units, systems like that. And that is what we need in Kelly Lake. We need to be able to grow the community and bring our people back and give them something to get back to. And the only way we can do that is put a government in place so the provincial and the federal government, industry, has somebody to negotiate that's going to be responsible for all those dollars, all that infrastructure to come in Kelly Lake. A lot of people believe in the oil industry is where it's at. The community is where it's at, you guys. The community is where we need to look after. We need to look after our elders. We need to look after our children. We need to look after the housing needs. And the way we do that is we negotiate with government. We put together a government, and the quicker we do it, the quicker we can get on that table and start the government looking at us seriously. Not just as a community of Kelly Lake, but at an Aboriginal community. The rights that Aboriginal people have in this country are amazing. We have to utilize that alone, just the fact that we are Aboriginal people. The government want to help people, Aboriginal people. We have reconciliation that's coming that's in play right now. UNDRIP, DRIPA, all these acts are forcing the government to deal with Aboriginal people in a way they've never done before, and to respect our rights and our asserting ourselves within our province. So that's why this is so important, you guys. It has to be done. And you guys need to step up and try to get this election process done as quick as you can. The longer you wait, the longer the process goes, the quicker all this stuff goes by Kelly Lake, because all this stuff is going day by day. The government's working with all other Aboriginal groups across the country, and they're increasing their inclusion in all the negotiations everywhere. Kelly Lake's left behind right now because they have no leadership that the government respects or the government's looking after, because the community hasn't voted in one in. So the longer you guys wait, the more you're gonna miss out on, and a lot of them dollars are gonna be spent by the time it comes around to Kelly Lake to get in line to make sure that our community is looked after. So I urge everybody here, make sure that you guys get this process going. Get these meetings going as much as you can. Support whoever you can to make sure that we have a good, viable government. Myself, I support Norman and his group because they've stepped up. This here's infrastructure, this thing's right now that's happening, hasn't happened in Kelly Lake, like I said, in 28 years. Norman and his group stepped up, and they're here for Kelly Lake, the community, the citizens, the people in Kelly Lake. If they were here for money, Norman wouldn't be here for one thing. He makes way better money doing what he was doing before. That tells me he's here for the people. And for him to come in and start this infrastructure and not going after oil and gas right off the hop and worrying about that, he's worried about the community and bringing everything forward to the community. The government's where it's at, you guys. Go after the government for them funds to build your houses, to build your infrastructure. Get that in place before anything. After you have that all in place, then we work on industry. Then we make sure that we got a seat at that table. And when industry comes into the Kelly Lake area and territory, you guys are benefiting out of it. Not groups benefiting out of it like they have been for years. Kelly Lake has to start benefiting out of that now. Not just certain individuals, the community. And that's what this is all about. And I'd like to thank Norman for putting this all together. And I have, like I said, I fully support Norman and his group doing this because they've stepped up and they've made this process happen.
Hi, I was first asked about 2 years ago to sit on the NIGI board, and I'm not good with big words or educated. I didn't even graduate high school. But anyway, when I first went to my very first meeting, they were talking about roadblocks and how we couldn't do this, and I'm like, go through the roadblock, just go. Well, Dacia was there and Marcus, and I'm like, why can't we just go do it? Just go do it. Go do things so people can see that you're doing things, and once they start seeing that you're doing things, the people will come. And that's exactly what they did. And now our roadblocks, we're gonna step over them. And we're not in competition with any other group. They can do whatever they're doing. We just like all our people to come together. You wanna fight for your $5, go ahead. But we're thinking bigger, and our housing is coming and everything will come together.
Hello, my name is Glenn. And listening to everybody talk here, to me, the first thing we should go after is that land around Kelly Lake. We need to freeze it before the farmers move in and take it over. We're going to lose it all. There's a major highway coming through Kelly Lake nobody even knows about, because the west side of Kelly Lake into the mountains is going to be being developed, not just in the oil field. Over there, further south in the mountains, they figure that's the biggest oil field in the world. It's been tested and it's there. It hasn't been developed, but it's going to be. Now the miners that are working in there, they also found gold. And they figured out a way that they can use the coal for the oil field for fracking. So they're building a plant in Beaver Lodge, and there's a mine coming up by Stony Lake. They're going to be trucking all that coal, might be surface coal that they can use, that'll work for that. And that highway is going to be paved. Where is it going through? Red Willow, or is it Kelly Lake? Because Kelly Lake is the main route going into the mountains. We're going to have to try to step in, if they're coming through Kelly Lake, to reroute that highway to the south side of the Kelly Lake so it doesn't come through the community. You know, if we don't go after that land, we're going to lose it to the farmers. I'll guarantee you that. That's the first thing that should be worked on, is freeze that land, claim it so they can get it. Not like a reserve, but just claim the land as part of the community, and we can do it. I know how it's done because I already took in a quarter section and 5 acres there. I applied for myself and I did get it, but I never took it because I was confused and I left the community. But it can be done very easily. We can freeze all that land around there, certain portion of it, then anything that goes in within that area, any development in the oil field, will get dividends from that money to come to the community instead of it going to Moberly Lake. Because the first people that came in there and put a claim into Kelly Lake was McLeod Lake. They put a land claim in, and they got to be dealt with before anybody else. But Moberly Lake stepped in because they got a lot of members from Kelly Lake. So they're collecting money on behalf of their members for Kelly Lake, but Kelly Lake is being left out. They're not getting anything. If there is, another group is getting it all. And those people have to be dealt with. You're not just going to knock them over, because their claim is in court right now. It's already being worked on. So they got a fairly strong voice until their claim is over, regardless if we form a government or not. They'll have to be dealt with first, then us. But if we do it another way, we can overrule them. We'll take it over anyway, regardless what happens, regardless what they got to say. Because everything here that I see that's being done is being honest. You know, it's all for the community, and I'm all for that. That's why I got out of the politics myself, because I was involved at first. But when the stealing started, I backed off. You know, but we can go a long ways if we all stick together. Even the work around there, if we stuck together, we can capture 60% of the work that goes around there very easily. We got to train our people, but that'll be easy to do. There's people out there that can actually do it. As far as companies go, you know, if anybody wants to start a company, I'll be glad to help them, direct them in the right way anyway, show them how to form the company. I know how to do that. But, and it's easy. And just go from there, all work together, we can capture everything very easily. And we'll make history. Kettle Lake will be recognized. We need to clean it up, develop it a little bit, clean up the lakes around there. Believe me, there'll be bikinis and skiers all over that place in no time flat. I'll be in charge. No, it's okay. That's all I got to say.
Great.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. Random.
Does anyone have any particular comments or questions about the process of what it is that we're working on, or what it is that we'll be doing, what the community will be doing, what the working group will be doing over the next few months? We know we sort of showed you what the steps will look like, but it's a bit complicated, and it took a lot of time and discussion to even think about what that might look like. So it's a good opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. We can also give you some time to sort of speak amongst yourselves and then come back with any questions that you might have. But we just want to make sure that we hear from everyone, and everyone supports the idea.
Is there a timeline when the housing might start, or like building the houses? Like, any idea on that?
Yeah.
So for us, we've got approval for housing. So we're probably looking at, we're hoping this spring, but it's all bureaucratic, and the challenges that we all talk about, that's holding it up also. But we're hoping to start it this spring, next spring, this spring, to start putting housing in. So we have commitments from the federal government and provincial government. So yes, it's happening. It's just slow. I'd like to have it 10 years ago, but it's just slow.
Okay. You want to take a break?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, everybody, thanks. We'll take let's take 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Please, grab water or coffee. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask us, we're here and available. And when we come back, we'll talk a little more about the working group.
All right, you guys. So we're going to be talking about the working group and what we're expecting from the working group. So we're going to get Marcus or Dacia to follow up what's in the expectations from the working group, okay? So what we're hoping for, if you guys are interested in participating in the working group, we're going to have a sign-in sheet here over lunch. Put your name down because you want to participate in that, by all means, and then we'll let everyone know who's on the working group. But currently, all the elders are part of the working group. We're asking the community at large, whoever wants to be a part of the working group, which Dacia is going to go through what their roles and responsibilities are.
I don't need that, yeah. Kevin needs it. Okay, so before we start talking about the working group specifically, I was asked to walk through the steps of the proposed process just one more time again to remind everyone what that looks like. I'm sorry, I know I'm not very loud. So again, we had the Elders Committee meeting in May where a lot of the decisions and support for this began. We have this meeting with all of the community members that wanted to attend today so that everyone's informed, everyone is contributing to the conversation, and everyone understands what this will look like. What we need to do today is establish who will be part of the working group that will help make the decisions and do the work that moves the process ahead. So who will that be? It will be the Elders Committee to ensure that there's connectedness to that guidance and that leadership. But there will be more than just the elders, so we have to figure out who that is. And then we have to figure out what it is that they will be charged to do. What's the purpose of the working group and some terms of reference, so some guidance for that group. So some of that we have kind of drafted a little bit based on the meeting in May with the Elders Committee, but we want to bring that to the community as a whole so that the community can say yes, say no, give some advice, and then the working group will get established today, and then it will set off to do its work, and it will report back to the community during Kelly Lake Days, which is in August. So between now and August, that working group will have a number of things to do. Marjorie.
When you make that working group, can you put more members on there afterwards, or do they have to be the working group that's made today? Is that going to be the ones that take care of business?
It would be a good idea and kind of important for timing. Like, we don't want this to keep dragging on and dragging on. So to really move ahead and move forward quickly, it would be important to have that working group set today so that it can start working immediately. If we still have to...
Like, you can't add anyone on afterwards?
Marjorie, the working group will just do recommendations. It still has to come back to the community.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people get to have say in it.
Yeah.
So the working group don't get to decide. What they'll
okay.
do is they'll put some recommendations,
Yeah.
bring it back to the community, and the community has to approve it at the end of the day. So it's really suggestions that we're going to be presenting to the community, and they'll be saying yes, no, yes, no. So there's a lot of opportunity.
Because if someone's on that working committee and they happen to be working and they're not around when these meetings happen, then, you know, I just wondered if someone would be stepping in to take their place, or
I
how
see.
that would work.
Well, we're going to make sure to work with the working group to make sure that whatever the timing looks like for meetings works with everyone's schedule. So we'll do a lot of, we'll really make it work for the members as best we can so that they are able to attend meetings. Yeah.
Half of our elders are not here.
Yeah, and so we'll come up with the first meeting of the working group. All of the it'll be hopefully in Kelly Lake, and all of the Elders Committee will be there. Yeah.
I have a question. I mean, as a community, we all need this right now. So my question is, and more of a concern, we all know who these separatists are and who's always fighting against their cause.
Yep.
Are they gonna delay this process of government? Because that's our concern. Like, we need this.
So, and that's sorry, I don't know your name. It's
Clark.
Clark, nice to meet you. So we're aware of that. We referred to that earlier, that there part of the problem is there are these different groups, and we need to bring everybody together to make this happen, and that there may be pushback, there may be opposition to what this process is. So we're aware of that, and what we'd like to do is, as we move forward through this process, is to just open arms, bring as many people in as possible, and get the momentum going in the community, so that it will just continue to progress. There may be opposition, absolutely, and we're aware of that. And when it comes our way, we will have to deal with that. Okay. But the main thing is to have the support of the community, and as broad a base of the community as possible. And the sanction of the elders is really significant in this regard as well. And it's why we're having these discussions and these public meetings and being transparent and recording everything and sharing everything as much as we can and getting as many people as possible involved, is because that's how we keep this going and deal with any opposition. Great question, Clark. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and there are two things that need to be true about the process and also the future government, right? It has to have support from the community, internal support, and that's what's happening now. And it's a lot of people, so if there's one or two people that are trying to create a problem, they're coming up against everyone else in the community, and so they can try, but their voice is one, and the community are many. So that's an important part of that internal work that's being done, and why the process has the steps that it does is to build community engagement and confidence and participation, so that one voice can't derail the whole thing. It just won't be possible. Yeah.
Your question there, I was asked this question before too, but what Norman and Clint and Desmer and my brother Gary, what they're doing here, their integrity speaks for itself. It's showing around Kelly Lake, and it's people are seeing it, that things are being done. So we don't need to fight with anybody because they're seeing it. They're coming in. Well, there's more and more people coming in because the community's seeing what they're doing. But we actually see what's going on in Kelly Lake. It's not everybody's included, and everything's open. So their integrity speaks for itself. So there's more and more people here.
Okay.
Okay, so in the last meeting, we talked about, again, the whole process, and we talked about the formation of this working group to start doing the work. And the elders gave that group a name, so we thought we'd share the name with everyone today. So there was some discussion around how to come up with the name, of course, that it should be in Cree. And so initially, it was discussed to call the group something about a group of people. And the idea is the group of people is working together. So what this shows is just kind of the process where the first name was created, and then the second name was created, and then they came together to form the name of the working group, which I will not pronounce correctly, so I might ask someone else to do that. Can you pronounce it? I don't think I can properly. Mama Wehotse? Mama Wehotse?
Guys.
I can't even pronounce the last one.
Mama Wehotse? Oh, I want to include. Yeah.
It's working together.
Yeah.
Working together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Mamauntoyak.
Mama we?
Yeah, Mamauntoyak.
Ato? Skewen?
Skewin.
Okay.
All speak our language.
In syllables.
Skewin.
Yeah.
So just on the name is important. The name is important for two reasons. The name is important because of what it says about the process and about those who are involved, that it's the community working together. But the name is important as well because it's in Cree. And part of this process of developing government, developing a government, is bringing the community together and is building knowledge and building capacity, building understanding, building expertise in the community, and this process is both going to get you to a government, but it's also going to develop individuals in the community and the community as a whole in being able to govern itself. And the Cree language is the lifeblood of any culture. It's important that we use Cree as much as possible, and so we're setting off on this this voyage in a way that recognizes the importance of language. Okay.
I think it would be Mama Otuskia, working together.
Mama Okuskia. Okay.
Working together.
No, I'm talking about we govern ourselves.
Oh.
words I cannot say. You forget. You use too much white words.
Okay.
Dos que estamos, yeah?
Okay.
We work for ourselves?
Would that be more good,
Yeah, we'll,
pronounceable by other people though?
yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
It'd be interesting to learn. So these and the names. This working group is a very short-lived working group. It's just a few months of work that it does, and then it hands off to this vote in the governance committee. But it is important that we're naming and using the language as we go. So this will be, or a variation of this, will be used for the working group, and then perhaps something else for the governance committee, and then perhaps something else for the government itself. But we want to make sure that we're using, respecting, developing use of the language through this whole process. Okay. So moving on, Dacia.
So the second thing that came out of the meeting last month in May were some ideas around who should be part of this working group. And so it was very clear that the Elders Committee should form the heart of that group, but that they wanted other community representation to be there. So they talked a lot about, well, who else would that be and what else should that look like? And so it wasn't very important to determine exactly what that looked like, but it was important to take a few things into consideration. So the elders wanted a couple of younger people there, at least one or two, so that younger voice is part of the conversation. And they also talked about how important it would be to have representation from within Kelly Lake, so people that live in Kelly Lake itself, as well as representation from those who live outside of Kelly Lake, but that are very passionate about the future of Kelly Lake. So the makeup of the working group then, it will have some young people, it will have the Elders Committee, it will have some representation from people living in Kelly Lake, and it will have space for representation from people living outside Kelly Lake, but that really want to support the process moving forward, and then might have a lot of skills and expertise that would help the group in its work. We talked about what the number of people might look like, probably somewhere around 20 or less, so it's not too big, but also not too small. We also talked about how this group would meet. So as you know, the group is going to be reporting out to the community, giving some recommendations during Kelly Lake Days. So that's not a lot of time. So it means several meetings will have to happen pretty quickly between now and then. And we want to ensure that every member of that working group can participate in those meetings. So we'll do a lot of work to make sure the elders are all together somewhere, that if there are some members of the working group that don't live in Kelly Lake and can't get there, we'll find a way of ensuring that they're part of those conversations and that there's enough support around those meetings so that all of the work can get done in the time that we have to do this. We know that it's a lot to do in a short amount of time, but we also know that this community has been waiting for this to happen for too long already, and there's no more time to waste. So our role in that will just be to continue kind of being technical support to the working group to ensure that it's able to do all of this work quickly and that it can bring some recommendations forward to the community during Kelly Lake Days.
How many members of the Elder?
12, I believe.
12 members of the Elder group?
Yeah.
You're looking at around 20. That's for my experience. When you have a group that large to make decisions, it's going to prolong the process. I think there's too many, that's too big of a number. To get 20 people to agree on stuff, especially on election processes, you definitely need somebody who is experienced in elections and protocol and stuff like that to guide. But to have 20 people would be too big of a number to make those decisions. It's going to prolong the process, and then instead of having it in 6 or 8 or 9 or 12 months, it might be 20, 30 months before a decision can be made with that big of a group. So I recommend you bring that number down to be able, like, even if you had a member from each family around Kelly Lake, 5 or 6 of them, and have somebody with with the knowledge around electoral processes and everything to help guide that. And maybe you have 4 or 5 spokespeople from the elders group that represents the whole elders group, all of them. Then it'll just bring the numbers down to be able to make them decisions a lot quicker on behalf of, you're still representing the whole community that way.
Great, yeah, I know. Thanks. Well, that's important. Important point. And 20 is like a maximum number, and we did want to include all the elders who want to attend. You don't get 12 elders at every meeting, but yeah, I agree. This working group needs to work very quickly and efficiently. I think the mandate, just to respond a little bit, don't get too technical, but the mandate of the working group is very, very narrow. And so there aren't many decisions that we'll have to make, and we'll see that in the terms of reference. But I agree with you, 20 is a big number for a group like this for getting things done. And I think what we wanted to do really was to see who we got today. And then make decisions, and again, this will be a communal decision people here make of, these are the people and these aren't the people, and so on and so forth.
Some of our concerns, Walter, is that if people want to be involved, we just let them be involved. And for me, if we have 20, I expect 10 to show up one day, 10 the other day. But this thing has to move forward because I think elders are really imperative, but they're really there to help guide. But it's really how do we get more people involved in this process? And eventually all that stuff will work out, in my opinion. And because Marcus and Dacia will be guiding this, I won't be a part of this, but we're hoping that it takes a life on its own outside of anyone's influence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think kind of remembering the role of the elders is important. 20 sounds like a lot, but if 12 of them are the elders committee themselves, they're there to just observe and give guidance as needed. So yeah, like 20 feels unruly, but I think somewhere up to that number will be manageable. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Elders are very imperative in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
They know the names, everything like that. So the elders' inclusion is very, very important.
And we started with the elders, and we are including the elders every step of the way. Yeah, we certainly recognize that. Okay.
Now, the elders, when you say elders, that includes any elder from Kelly Lake. It doesn't matter which group they're from, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, right on. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so are we going to set this up and then have lunch?
Mm-hmm.
Like ask the questions?
Yep.
No, we should just tell what they were expecting from the working group, then decide.
Yeah. So I mentioned that what we want from the working group is very narrowly defined. So the working group has a very short time, 6 to 8 weeks, and what it's going to do is it really is 2 things. First of all, it's going to say, here's what the governance committee looks like. So a terms of reference for the governance committee, which is the next phase. That will be the organization, the body, the society, which actually does all the work for creating a government. So the 2 things that this working group will do is say, this is what the governance committee looks like, and this is what it's going to do. And then the second thing it'll do is say, this is how people are going to become members of the governance committee, and that's a vote. So we wanted to start introducing a democratic process early on. So we could appoint people to the governance committee, or there could be some kind of community consultation piece on that. But we want to try to start to understand and get people engaged in a voting process. So again, the 2 things this working group is going to do in the next 6 to 8 weeks is say, here's the terms of reference for the governance committee. And here's how the voting process is going to work for people to be on the governance committee. So that's it. That's all the working group does. That's its mandate. That's the outcomes that we're expecting from it. And we would like to, and we want to be able to put a draft of that in front of the community at the beginning of August at Kelly Lake Days. So short term, very focused. That's our concept of the working group.
which just this details basically. So each of the meetings between today and Kelly Lake Days that the working group is part of, and probably we're guessing it'll be about 3 meetings, so 1 meeting every 2 weeks. And what that will do is get all of this work done. So it's only a few things, but there's a lot of discussion and a lot of decision making around recommendations for each of these pieces. So that will be the work of the working group. So if you're thinking about, volunteering to be part of the group or suggesting somebody to be part of the group, what that looks like, what that commitment looks like, is a commitment to meet probably 3 times over the next few months, and to work collaboratively with the other members of that working group to make decisions around these things so that the recommendations can come forward to the community during Kelly Lake Days. So it would help, of course, if there are people that have a vested interest in, forwarding the government process for Kelly Lake, maybe have some experience or insight into how voting processes work, or are interested in that, the history of the community, people that are just really willing to sit down and work together to help move things forward, and then can commit to meeting 3 times over the course of the next few months. And we'll work really carefully to ensure that those meetings are long enough, that they're supported, so we know that if there's travel needed and all of that, there'll be support for all of that. This won't be something that takes a lot of not only your time but your money, right? Which I think is important for everybody to know. And that people's time will be compensated. If you're there and participating, there'll be an honoraria for that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think at this point, with an understanding of the working group and what what has been proposed by the elders and what we've put together in that regard, we're looking for feedback on that. But of course, please feel free as we take a break or eat lunch or so on to think about that. Ask us questions. Talk among yourselves as to what that would look like and who should be on it, is that the right mandate for the working group and so on. And any feedback you have, any suggestions you have, any questions you have, we would love to hear them.
Mm-hmm. Is that working group going to be in charge of the voting list? Voter list has to be put together.
Yep.
It's going to be part of the process. Yeah, no.
That's the voting
it's the
process.
The voting process. So that's the membership or citizenship is a significant issue. There's no question. And at this point, Walter, we have nothing. We have no answer to that at all. So part of the process of developing the government from beginning to end is going to be understanding and coming to a common understanding of who gets to vote and who's a citizen of Kelly Lake or a member of Kelly Lake. We don't know what that looks like, and honestly, I don't think we're going to get it right the first time through, which is another reason to do this vote
first
and get a sense of who's engaged, who wants to be involved, and how the community feels about who's on that list. So it is going to be important. There is no silver bullet for that. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be a long slog of trying to figure what works, what rules, what families, what connection to the community. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging, and we're under no illusion that it's going to work.
It'll only be as difficult as you make it.
Yeah.
There's a simple process in regards to citizenship, and that's where our elders come in play. Yep. They know the families, the history of Kelly Lake. And land, families that own land around Kelly Lake has been a part of Kelly Lake for years. Yep. Those are the things we have to look at for our voters list to assure that the election is legit. Because that is going to be a huge issue in regards to legitimizing the election. Is the voters list.
And part of the reason why there's steps in this process are because questions like this have to be answered before you can just have an election for a government, right? And so,
Yeah, just to add is that we know where the destination is, but the journey is part of the process. If we don't have this journey, having people involved, having all of this stuff, it doesn't really legitimize it. So the journey is really important. Although I'd like to have had this 20 years ago, but it doesn't. So we need to look at the journey because this is something new for us, which we all talked about, and we don't get it right, but at least we get most of it right. So let's just, the journey. Remember, journey is very important to this process.
We look forward to your help, Walter.
Yeah, a lot of ideas and thoughts coming up over here. Yeah, so, and again, we can't emphasize enough how important it will be that we'll have a break for lunch. You can think about what you've heard and the idea of the working group and what the work of that group looks like. But we need to leave here today with that working group so that we can keep going and so that this process moves forward and doesn't, continue to just not happen or move too slowly. So really having that group of people in place is what we have to do. That's our work here today, all together, all of us. So.
And just remember, the community has full say.
Yeah,
they put that middle voters list together. They put the policies, the procedures around this election in play, and they all agree on it. The government, nobody else can step into that process. No. It's a community initiative, and they have all the say in how they govern over their own community. Yep. And they have all the say on their own rules, regulations, everything like that. And in regards to voter list, everything like that, if the community accepts that, the government or nobody can step in and debate that process, because this is a community-driven procedure. Mm-hmm. So whatever you guys decide on how that process goes, that's what will be honored by government, by industry, by everybody, is the word of the community. So whatever you guys decide, regardless if the government don't agree with the process, it's honored. So you guys have all the say in this. You got all the say in the process, the election, the regulations, the rules around it. You guys are governing yourselves. So just remember that. You don't have to stick by culinary rules, regulations, anything like that. You guys are your own community, your own people. So whatever you guys decide and how to run it and how to operate it, that will be honored by any government. So just remember that.
And that's a good point, Walter. And I'll say, interestingly, in that regard, we have not even told the federal or provincial government that we're doing this, that you're doing this. It's none of their business. It's community, and this needs to 100% come from the community and be formed from the community. And that's where you get your internal legitimacy and your external legitimacy from. And whatever, as Walter says, the problems in the feds, they got nothing to do with this at all. It's none of their business. It's your business, because this is your government. And this is your government that's going to then go to them and tell them what you need, what they have to give you, and what you need to survive as a community. So it's a very powerful community-driven process that we're using here, and which you are not asking anybody's permission for except yourselves. Yeah.
Is there some things we could add in that some other communities have forgotten?
Yeah, it's a great question. You have carte blanche. Mm-hmm. You're starting from anything, yes. Anywhere you want. Yeah, you can do anything you want.
Yeah, it's a fresh start. Could add some stuff that other people
absolutely.
have forgotten. Yep. So we got to really think.
Yeah.
Yep. This is a really creative process. Once you get the government committee up and running, it will just start with a blank sheet of paper and say what works for Kelly Lake. Not what works for an Indian band over here or works for a society over here or what the federal government wants you to do. It's what Kelly Lake wants.
How I see it right now, our boys have come a long ways getting this far. Mm-hmm. As far as I'm concerned, the boys can continue what they're doing right now and maybe add a few more members to help along.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's
have been doing a great job for us. So far, so good.
So far, so good. Excellent. I'll take that.
Okay, so again, we'll take a break. We'll get some.
12:30.
Yep.
So we could just finish up. We could finish, like you said, finalize the working committee and then work on the dates. and then we'll be done for today. So we could have 35 minutes for lunch, if that's right for you guys. It's ready. So go ahead and we'll come back at 12:30.
Going in today, later today.
Yeah, amazing.
Members here, what makes sense to start off is that maybe we need to do a vote, like are we heading in the right direction?
Oh, good. He's going to do it.
Are we actually doing this properly? Although you guys showed up and it shows that you guys approve it, but we should formalize it. So I guess the question is the process that Marcus and Dacia did, or that we mapped out. If you guys like it, we probably should have someone to move that. That's a process we approve, and then we will vote on it if that's a process that we'd like to move forward with. So do we have any movers on that one? Brian Mack is the mover. Peter's second, or Greg, I guess, seconder. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? No? We're good. So from that, I'm going to just hand this over to Marcus and Dacia.
So, with that done, it's really just the working group, so feedback on the working group, yeah. All right, good afternoon, everybody. I say we'll have you out of here by 1. Hope you enjoyed your lunch. Just a couple of things to get done before we head out. Thank you for that vote. That was fantastic. It's really powerful. That'll be a great thing to be on the video for posterity for this meeting. So before lunch, we talked about the working group. We talked about membership on the working group and the mandate that it has and the length of time and meetings and so on. We asked you to just have some discussion, give some thought to that over lunch. So at this point, we're wondering if there's any feedback or questions or further clarification, or whether people are happy with the working group as we proposed it. Looking for feedback.
Just raise your hand, I'll bring the microphone. You can share your thoughts. Everybody happy?
If the feedback is that's great, let's do it, then
Off we go.
Right.
Okay.
And then the next, as we said from the beginning, the next really big step out of the meeting today, so that the work can happen and going forward is to figure out who it will be that will be part of this working group. So we know that the Elders Committee members are an important part of that group, and they will help give guidance and leadership and support to the process. But now it's up to the rest of the community to let us know who else wants to be involved in that work. We shared that the commitment that you're making is to meet probably 3 times between now and the beginning of August, where Kelly Lake Days will happen, where the results of your work will be presented to the community. And if you're in Kelly Lake, you'll get together at the community center in person. If you're outside of Kelly Lake, we'll make every effort to ensure that you're connected. So we'll use technology, we'll get you in the room via Zoom or a phone call and a speakerphone or whatever it takes. But we'll make sure that that happens. So in order to keep things moving forward and to keep building on the momentum, we need to leave here with that group. So we'll open it up to people to volunteer themselves.
Yep. Okay. So, and if you're interested, interested in working in coming on the working group, great. Okay. So what we would ask of you people, thank you so much for volunteering. Really appreciate it. What we'd ask is that you come and see us before you leave. And we'll get your contact information, and we'll pretty quickly get you some information about for the first meeting. In regards to that first meeting, we want to schedule that now. So if you did volunteer, come on up, and we'll have that discussion. But we need to be scheduling that first meeting right away so that we're keeping things rolling and getting the work done in a timely fashion. So thanks everybody for coming today. We really appreciate it. It's been great, and we're just so excited that they're moving this forward, and that there's such positive feedback and great questions from people. So thank you very much. And again, for those of you who did volunteer, after Norman's done his closing piece, which is what, we good then?
No, I got other things.
Please come up and see us, and we'll get your contact information and get that first meeting going. Walter.
Just a recommendation, just so we don't get too much negative feedback, is can we make it so like there's one member from each family around Kelly Lake?
Well,
but if we get too many members from one family, people are going to see that as biased.
No, but remember, it's a journey. This is just recommendations. This working group doesn't have authority. All they're doing is bringing recommendations that brings to everyone else to vote on. So it's really, you guys are just rolling up your sleeves, saying, well, this is our ideas. Some of your ideas might be thrown out and said, no, we don't like that. That's a possibility. So people will have a process to vote. This is our new normal, guys. We're going to vote on everything. This is the new normal that only not a few people deciding on our behalf anymore. This is the new normal that we'll be meeting every time, and we're going to be voting on everything that should, especially it affects you guys. So just remember that. Walter, yes, we can't get everything perfect, but eventually as we start moving this, I'm hoping we'd like to get there. But like I said, we'll just work with what we currently have, and we will... like I said, people will get to vote on it eventually. Every single person have that opportunity.
And I want to add two things to that. One, the Elders Committee is really helpful in that regard because they do represent everyone from the community. So in having them as a key part of the group and having their voices there, that helps with complete representation. And two, I think there are members here that do represent all of the families of Kelly Lake. So if you're here and you think that representation on the working group is important, then come offer to be part of that and be part of that work. If you don't want to be part of the working group, but you would like to still be part of the decisions that are happening and you want members of your family to be part of that, keep coming to the meetings and keep bringing them with you so that they're hearing the same information that everyone else is hearing and they're participating equally. And that will help ensure that everyone is equally involved.
All right. So our next meeting is going to happen on the 5th and the 6th. We're having a big bingo on the Kelly Lake Days. Just before our bingo starts, we'll probably have a quick discussion on the recommendations that the working group come up with. So show up. There'll be 2 days for Kelly Lake Days. We're doubling the prize money for the bingo. Okay. We're going to have probably double the prizes for the horseshoe, the moose calling. So practice. Okay, no wounded moose here. So the other one is we're gonna have axe throwing, all these different type of things that are going to be happening. But just remember that we're going to do some business, but it's time for us to visit like we did in the past. That's what the 5th and the 6th is about. Just before I'm going to leave Margie to say her last words before we close up. Go ahead. Saturday, Sunday.
But is that July or August?
August.
Oh, in August. Oh, okay.
August 5th and 6th.
5th and 6th. Okay.
We'll be in the morning like 9 until we're finished on Sunday, whenever that is. If there's hardly anyone, maybe we'll do it in 1 day, but we feel that last year we had over 100 people. This time we're advertising it more. We're hoping we're going to have more people, because especially when we have the cash prizes are going to be large. And it's really, for us, it is an investment for us to get together and visit like we did back home in the old days, okay? Any final questions? Of course. Well, it depends on the fires and the moose and all those things. Yes, we'd like to have one. So we're doing that, okay? Yeah. All right. All right, guys, so we'll be coming back on the 5th and the 6th and to follow up from the working group's work, okay?
One more thing, sir. Andrew, can you please come up? We've got a brand new Nigi Facebook page. Andrew Johnson set it up for everybody to go and visit. He's going to tell you how to find it so that you can go. We're hoping to have the video recording of today's community gathering posted up tomorrow. So you can tell everybody if you weren't able to make the meeting, no problem. It's on your Facebook page. How do we get there, sir?
Okay, well, I'll just describe the process. All you have to do is open up Facebook on your phone and do this. Go to the search area and search for Nigi Management and Community. Yeah. Oh, so Nikihk. Nikihk. Look at you guys. So the logo for it, or what it looks like, is just an orange N right now. It's because we don't have a branding for it. It's called Nigi Management and Community Development Society. So you should see it.
If Walter can find it, the rest
Anyone can find it. So, you know what Nigi means? The toll. That's what we're talking about. This is our home, guys.
So
thanks
if
for all coming out.
if anyone needs help finding it, come and see us. We'll help you.
That's all, guys. So we'll see you guys on the 5th and the 6th of August, okay?